My name is Diana Reeves. I'm 33 years old. 10 months ago, I was standing at my own graduate school pinning ceremony, the one I had worked 6 years to reach, in a room full of colleagues, professors, and people I respected, when my sister Bridget stood up during the open reception, clinked a champagne glass, and told the room that she had put me through college. I had paid for every semester myself. She had not given me a single dollar. The room looked at me. I looked at Bridget. She smiled the way she always smiled when she had just done something she knew I wouldn't correct in public. Confident and a little daring. The smile of someone who had spent 30 years learning exactly how much she could take before I would say anything. This time, she had miscalculated, because in my bag underneath the table 2 feet away from me was a folder. Inside that folder was the original scholarship letter, the financial aid summary from all 4 undergraduate years, and a 1-page document I had prepared 3 weeks earlier, printed on clean white paper, that laid out the complete financial record of my college education. I had not planned on needing it that night, but I had brought it anyway, because I had learned a long time ago to be ready. Before I tell you what happened in that room, please like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what time is it there. I love connecting with all of you. Now let me take you back to where this really began. I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina, the younger of 2 daughters in a family that had organized itself, long before I was old enough to understand the arrangement, around my sister Bridget's narrative. Bridget was 7 years older than me, which meant by the time I was aware of anything, she had already established herself as the family's protagonist. She was the one who had opinions at dinner, the one whose achievements were discussed, whose setbacks were worried over, whose version of events was the one that became the official record. My father was a high school shop teacher. My mother worked as a payroll administrator for a mid-sized manufacturer. They worked hard and they loved us. And they had one significant blind spot, which was that Bridget had learned very early how to be the center of their attention. And they had never really noticed the cost of that to me. The pattern was so consistent I almost stopped seeing it. When I was 9, I wrote a story that my 4th grade teacher submitted to a statewide young writers competition. I won 2nd place. There was a small ceremony at the county library, and my parents came, and my mother cried, and it was a genuinely good day. Until the drive home, when Bridget said that she had actually helped me with the story, and that the good parts were really her ideas. She said it casually, from the back seat, and my parents nodded along because they hadn't been in the room when I wrote it. And I was 9, and I didn't know how to say that wasn't true in a way that didn't sound like a fight. I told myself it didn't matter. The certificate had my name on it. At 15, I made the junior varsity tennis team after 2 summers of free lessons at the public courts down the street, where I had taught myself by watching videos and practicing against the backboard for hours. It was the first athletic thing I had ever been good at. At the family dinner that week, Bridget told my parents that she was the one who had encouraged me to try tennis, that it had really been her idea, that she deserved some credit for seeing what I could do before anyone else did. She had never once watched me practice. My parents agreed warmly. I ate my green beans and said nothing. I told myself it didn't matter. I knew what was true. The one that should have made me speak up sooner came when I was 17 and applying to college. I had worked extremely hard on my applications and had applied to 7 schools. The morning I received my financial aid offer from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, a full academic scholarship covering tuition, fees, and a book stipend, 4 years, based entirely on my GPA and test scores, I came downstairs holding the letter and my mother hugged me, and my father said he was proud of me, and it was a genuinely good morning. Bridget was visiting that weekend. She read the letter, put it down, and said, "You're welcome, by the way. I helped her with her essays." She had not helped me with my essays. I had written every word of every application myself, in the evenings after my shift at the grocery store where I worked 16 hours a week throughout junior year. Bridget had read one draft of one essay, months earlier, and said it was fine. My parents looked at me. I looked at the scholarship letter in my hand. I said, "Thanks, Bridget." That was the answer she was waiting for. That small, grudging acknowledgement that could later be expanded in the retelling into whatever she needed it to become. I told myself it was a small thing, that nobody who mattered would actually believe she had paid for anything, that the truth was obvious and would remain obvious. I was wrong about that. Over the following 4 years, and then 6 more after graduation, I watched Bridget tell a gradually expanding version of this story to gradually more people. It grew with each retelling. By the time I was 25 and she was telling it at my cousin's wedding, she had paid my application fees. By 28, she had personally funded a significant portion of my education. By the time I was 30 and in graduate school, working toward my graduate degree in public health while also carrying a full-time research position, she was telling people she had put me through college. Full stop, no qualification, presented as simple fact to anyone who had known us long enough not to ask follow-up questions. I corrected it quietly when I could. To close friends, to colleagues who asked directly, I told the truth. But I had never corrected it publicly, in front of Bridget, in a room where she was the one who had just said it. There was a reason for that. And the reason was not that I was afraid of her. The reason was that for a very long time I had believed it wasn't worth the cost. The family disruption, the scene, the way my parents would look at me if I contradicted her publicly, the accusations of jealousy and pettiness that would follow. I had calculated every time that the price of speaking was higher than the price of staying quiet. What changed was graduate school. 6 years of studying public health had changed my relationship to evidence in ways I had not anticipated when I enrolled. I had gone in thinking I was there to learn methodology and statistical analysis and program evaluation. Those things happened. But what also happened, quietly and cumulatively, was that I spent 6 years in a discipline that treats accurate information as a moral obligation. I learned to build a case, to document, to present facts in a way that was clear and complete and left no room for comfortable misinterpretation. I wrote research papers on community health interventions and had to defend every claim I made to a committee of people who pushed back on everything. I gave presentations to rooms of skeptical colleagues. I learned at a cellular level what it meant to stand behind a claim with your name on it, and what it meant when someone else's name appeared on work they hadn't done. That framework began to reach backward. I thought about Bridget's story, the way it had grown across a decade from a small flourish at a family dinner into a flat statement of fact presented to rooms full of people who had no reason to question it. And I started to understand, in a way I hadn't allowed myself to before, that the silence I had maintained all those years was not patience, and it was not peace. It was the ongoing cost of protecting Bridget's story at the expense of my own. I did not become angry about this. I became very organized. 18 months before the pinning ceremony, I requested my complete financial aid records from UNCG. It took 2 weeks for the records office to compile them. 4 years of award letters, disbursement confirmations, scholarship verifications, work study documentation. I scanned every page. I organized them chronologically. Then I sat down with a spreadsheet and created a 1-page summary, the way I would create a summary for any research document. Clearly labeled, totals at the bottom, sources cited. Total tuition over 4 years, $38,400. Total fees, $5,200. Total book stipend, $3,600. Total scholarship funding received, $47,200. Total personal contribution from my grocery store job and subsequent part-time work, $11,400. Total contribution from family members of any kind, $0. I printed it. I put it in a manila folder with the original scholarship letter on top. I put the folder in my desk drawer, and I did not tell a single person it existed. Not yet. My thesis advisor, Dr. Linda Obi, had become someone I trusted in the way you trust a person who has watched you work for 6 years and seen exactly who you are under pressure. She was precise and generous, and she had a very low tolerance for nonsense of any kind. I had told her, in a conversation after a late departmental meeting, about Bridget, about the pattern. She had listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she had said, "You understand that allowing false information to circulate about you is not modesty. It's misinformation." That sentence had stayed with me. She attended the pinning ceremony. She was seated 3 tables from my family. She knew about the folder. The ceremony itself was everything I had worked toward. Recognition for 6 years of coursework, research, and a thesis on community-based disease prevention interventions that my committee had called the strongest in the program's recent history. My parents were there, proud and a little overwhelmed. My mother cried twice during the formal portion. My father shook the hand of every faculty member he could find. Bridget arrived 40 minutes late and immediately began circulating through the room as though she had organized the event. During the open reception, while people were eating and talking, and the room had the warm, low hum of genuine celebration, Bridget clinked her glass. She thanked everyone for coming to celebrate her little sister. She said she had always believed in me. She said she wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that supporting a sibling through their education was a real investment, and that seeing me here tonight made every sacrifice worth it. Every sacrifice. The room began to respond. A few nods, a smattering of appreciative murmurs, the polite collective warmth of people who were hearing something they had no reason to question. I stood up. I was calm. That is the thing I want to convey most clearly. I was not shaking, I was not crying, I was not running on adrenaline. I had been preparing for this moment for 18 months, and preparation does something to a person. It makes you steady in a way that emotion alone never quite manages. I said, "Thank you, Bridget. I want to add something to that." I reached under the table. I took out the folder. The room went quiet in that particular way that means people can sense a shift in temperature before they know the source of it. "I want to share something with everyone here tonight," I said, "because accuracy matters to me, and I think it should matter to the people in this room who've spent 6 years watching me build a career in public health research, which is, at its core, about getting the facts right." I opened the folder. My undergraduate education at UNC Greensboro was funded by a full academic merit scholarship. 4 years, full tuition, fees, and book stipend. I've carried these records with me tonight because this story has been told incorrectly for a long time, and I've allowed that for a long time, and I'm choosing not to allow it anymore. I held up the original scholarship letter. This is the award notification. It is dated April 3, 2009. It is addressed to me. It is based on my GPA and my test scores. It was earned. I looked at the summary page. Total scholarship funding, $47,200 over 4 years. Total personal contribution from part-time employment, $11,400. Total family contribution, 0. The room was completely still. My father's hands were flat on the table in front of him. My mother was looking at the tablecloth. Bridget had gone the color of copy paper, which I noted with the same detached precision with which I noted everything that evening. Dr. Obi, 3 tables away, was not visibly reacting, but she had set down her fork. I continued because I had more to say, and I had earned the right to say it. I want to be clear about why I'm doing this here, tonight, in front of people I respect and people I love. I'm not doing it to embarrass anyone. I'm doing it because I have spent nearly 20 years being someone who stays quiet to keep the peace, and I have learned, in 6 years of research, that allowing false information to stand uncorrected is a choice with consequences. Tonight, I'm choosing something different. I closed the folder. Bridget, I know you believe a version of this story. I don't think you're lying on purpose. I think you've told it so many times you can't separate it from what actually happened. But what actually happened is documented, and I have it with me, and I am no longer willing to let the other version be the one that circulates. I looked around the room. I paid for my own education. I am proud of that. I would like for the people who matter to me to know that it is true. I sat down. For a moment, the room held its breath. Then Dr. Obi said, evenly and clearly from 3 tables away, "Congratulations, Diana. All of it, earned." 2 of my cohort colleagues began to applaud. Then the room followed, not universally but substantially. My parents' table was quiet. Bridget sat down. She did not speak again for the remainder of the evening. She left before dessert without saying goodbye to me. My mother came to find me near the end of the night. She looked tired in a way I hadn't seen before, not the tiredness of a long evening, but the tiredness of someone who has just seen something they have been not seeing for a very long time. She said, "I didn't realize she'd been saying that to so many people." I said, "I know." She said, "I should have paid more attention." I said, "Yes." She started to say something else and then stopped. She hugged me instead, carefully, the way you hug someone when words aren't adequate and you know it. I let her. My father found me later at the coat check. He shook my head slowly and said, "I always knew you did it on your own, Dee." I should have said that louder. That hit me somewhere unexpected. Not in a painful way, in the way that honesty from someone who has been too quiet for too long hits you. Like a small light on in a room that was dark. Bridget called me 4 days after the ceremony. I let it go to voicemail. She said she felt ambushed. She said I could have talked to her privately. She said it was embarrassing and she didn't understand why I had to make it a whole thing in front of everyone. I listened to the message once. I did not call back. What I did do 2 weeks later was write her a letter. I told her I had tried to correct this privately for years, in conversations, in small corrections, in quiet facts offered to people who had been given the wrong version. I told her I had never once received an acknowledgement that she heard me. I told her the public setting was not my first choice. It was my last one. I told her I still loved her because that was true, and I wasn't willing to say things that weren't true just because they were easier. I told her that if she wanted a relationship with me going forward, it needed to be one where my accomplishments belonged to me. Just that. Nothing dramatic. Just that. She has not written back. It has been 10 months. I am holding the door open at a distance I can maintain, not wide, not locked. Just available if she decides she is ready to walk through it honestly. My parents and I talk more openly now than we have in years. Something shifted that night for them too, I think. My mother has asked me, twice, to tell her things I never told her before, about growing up, about the small moments that accumulated. It is uncomfortable and it is also long overdue, and I am doing it because I think it is the only way to have something real with them before it's too late for real to matter. I am a public health researcher. I have a position at a university I love, doing work I believe in, with colleagues who know exactly who I am and what I have built. I run a small research lab. I have graduate students of my own now, and I tell them on the first day of every semester the same thing. Your work belongs to you. Document everything. Be accurate. Do not allow misinformation to circulate uncorrected, even when it is uncomfortable to correct it, especially then. If you have ever had someone claim credit for something you earned, your degree, your achievement, your survival, your work, I want you to hear this. Your record is yours. The truth of what you did and how you did it and who actually showed up for you belongs to you, and it does not expire, and it does not become less true because someone else has been telling a different story for a long time. Get your documents, know your numbers, keep the original letters, and when the moment comes, if it comes, be ready to be very calm and very specific. That combination is more powerful than anything loud. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. If this story meant something to you, please like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, has anyone ever taken credit for something you earned? How did you handle it? And what do you wish you had said? Drop your answer below. I read every single one. Until next time, your accomplishments have your name on them. Make sure everyone knows it.